Good morning, everyone. This is a special edition of our announcements because we want to do this in honor of Patriots Day, which is on every September 11th. This year, it is on Saturday. So we want to take a moment here on Friday to remember the victims of 9/11. And we'll start here this morning with the pledge, followed by a moment of silence. And during the moment of silence, please remember all the victims and all of the soldiers and sailors, Marines who have given their lives in the war on terror after 9/11. So we will now begin with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for participating in that moment of silence and in the pledge. Obviously, in history, there are always events that occur that changes the course of everybody's lives that are experiencing that event. 9/11 is one of those days for us. We lived through it, and we wanted to share what we experienced that day. I happened to be a new assistant principal here at Martinsville High School, and we were taking the I-STEP test that morning. So here we were, students are in I-STEP. I'm in a new role. I was in class teaching history and government. Now I'm an assistant principal, and the secretary walks into my office and says, "Mr. Boland, there's a plane that struck a tower in New York." And it was like, oh wow, was it a little commuter plane, a little biplane, somebody's personal plane, one of those type of things? And I went into Mr. Lipp's office. Mr. Lips was our athletic director, and he had a little 13-inch television sitting on his desk. And I walked in there, and he flipped to that channel, and we are watching some of the scenes, and we see all the smoke rising from the first tower as we're sitting there. Or, well, actually, he was sitting, I was standing over the desk, and we're watching this. And at that point is when the second plane came in and hit. And somebody in the room there with us, because a few other people had joined us, asked, "Is that a replay of the first plane?" But then we realized, I mentioned, well, it can't be because the smoke's already coming out of the other tower. So we had witnessed the second plane strike the building. And we knew at that point that our world as it was never ever going to be the same. I have Coach Duggar here with me, and he was telling me where he was. Can you share with the students where you were that morning?
It's fun. You hear people say it all the time. There's events in your life where you'll never forget where you were at. And I can remember it like it was yesterday on 9/11. I was a senior in high school. We were I-STEP was taking place. I was at Franklin Central High School, and we were doing a class meeting. We had all the seniors in the auditorium, and we're all just kind of going through some stuff kind of for the year coming up, graduation, all those things. Our assistant principal walks up and says, I'll never forget it. He says, "Don't take life for granted. Life's very fragile. A plane just crashed into the World Trade Center's building." And at the time I was like you, I was thinking, was it just a personal plane? Some plane. I thought, okay, that's a terrible story. Probably 20, 30 people lost their lives in that. So we go on through the class meeting, and I remember kind of going back to our homeroom, if you will, because that's where we were at for the day because the rest of the school was I-STEP testing. And our teacher had rented a TV for us to watch a movie, and she had rigged up some paper clips to make an antenna so we could watch the news. And right as we kind of sat down and came back in, the picture came on, and the smoke from the first tower was there, and you just saw that second plane coming in and crash, and it was like, wow, this is crazy. And that was basically all we did for the rest of the day was watch that TV, and they released us early, and like you said, it was life-changing. I'll never forget where I was at, that particular moment, and the details, the vividness of it, the teacher's name, who was in the homeroom. I can recite a lot of that just because how impactful that moment was.
It's emblazoned in your memory,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
I know whenever we talked earlier, you talked about your dad telling you, we got to go get some fuel in the car.
So there was a lot of panic.
Yes.
There was a lot of panic nationwide, not really knowing what was going to happen. And all the rumors were flying that it was someone from the Middle East. And so when I got home, my dad said, hey, grab your car. And we took all 3 of our cars and filled them up with gas. And we sat in line for over 2 hours to get gas. So we weren't the only people thinking that way. So we didn't know what was going to happen as far as potential, impacts to war and those types of things afterwards. So we were, everybody was kind of in full panic mode.
Yeah, the threats, we had no idea. And here's something for you students that are listening. We didn't have cell phones that were connected to internet and stuff like that. I mean, I had a little flip phone, right? So we weren't getting instant information. You were getting the news basically from a TV with paper clips
up to
antennas,
the
right?
Yep.
So we were not getting that instant information that you all are used to. So there were all these questions and thoughts, and people were scared, and people were traumatized, and people were impacted in unbelievable ways. And we did know, as the day played out, that our world was going to be totally different, and it has been. Now, for you all going to the airport and going through security and all the protocols that are there, that's normal for you. It wasn't for us. We didn't go through big check points and stuff of that nature. And I always remember teaching my history class when we talked about the Middle East, talking about Israel, and the fact that students in Israel ride buses and they have chicken wire on their bus windows, and asking the students, why do you think they have chicken wire on their windows? And some of them would eventually get to the point, well, it's so that nobody would throw Molotov cocktails or hand grenades or something into it because of terrorism that they live with on a regular basis. And it was like our world was getting ready to shift into that type of thinking. We were going to have to think a lot differently. And I know for a fact that day changed my life. One of the students in the building was Ryan Frishy. And I've talked to you all before over at, whenever we were at Wooden, about Ryan being a student who graduated in 2002 from Martinsville High School and played basketball and went into the military and was killed in Afghanistan. And the reason he went into the military was to fight for our country. So that impacted him to inspire him to go into the military and fight for the country. Pat Tillman was an NFL player, and here he is making millions in the NFL, and he says, I've got to go defend our country. And then he was eventually, unfortunately, killed in action as well.
And I think it's important to not only remember those types of stories with the soldiers, but also those firefighters who, as everybody is scurrying down those 100 floors, trying to get out of the burning building, you have all these firefighters going up to fight the fire, and all the loss in that day was just unbelievable, and how many heroes of that day as well. So it's a fitting Patriots Day is a fitting title.
Fitting title is right. My father was a retired fireman, and that was the part that really got him, because when we watched video and stuff, you could hear the beeping at the World Trade Center in the rubble, and people didn't know what the beeping was, and the beeping is the device that firemen wear to be found in fires, and you could hear beeping all over. And that really, really impacted my father, because he knew what that meant, that there were some of his brethren that are covered in rubble. And it's like, you have no idea, son, what's going on. Those guys are trapped. They're covered and probably not getting out. So that really, really impacted him, and it did with the police, the fire, the first responders. While people are trying to get out, they're going up. They're going up to save lives. So we honor their sacrifice, their courage. All that is rolled into Patriots Day. It's not just the military, because they went into action afterwards. And if you reflect back, the first action taken against the war on terror, or in the war on terror, was Flight 93 in Pennsylvania, when the passengers decided they're not going to be sitting by while a plane flies into the White House or the the Capitol building, because they knew they were on the route to Washington. And to know that the courage it took to be able to do what they did is just, to me, all inspiring and unbelievable. So as we reflect on it, that's why we wanted to have this little moment, so you don't forget. And I saw President Bush just a few days ago in an interview say the problem that he had, or the thing he was worried about, was after 20 years people will start forgetting. And we don't want to forget, and we don't want to miss the opportunity to honor our first responders and our military and the families that support them. So that's what Patriots Day is, and we hope that you talk to your parents, talk to your family members, people who lived through it, see what their lives were like and where they were. As Coach Duggar said, it changed, and they will remember exactly where they were and what they were doing, unless they were in a crib. They will remember that. So even talk to your teachers, see what they have to say. Interesting stories, but it was an unbelievable time. Thank you for participating here and listening to our reflections on 9/11, and we hope that you honor Patriots Day and honor our first responders and our military in the way that the Patriots Day was set up to do. Thank you.